Thanks for having us here. Exciting to see so many people interested in data sciences. We're a management consulting firm based here in Atlanta, local to Atlanta, focus really Atlanta Fortune 1000 companies, and really becoming data-driven, managing data as a strategic asset. I'm just going to blast through this, but the reason, like I said, we're excited is data is all we do, analytics, and helping our customers from a strategic standpoint really drive value and differentiate themselves by doing what we're all here to learn about, which is to harness the power of their information. So we're all about driving insights. I love the topic tonight about driving the business value out of data, not using the word big data. It's really about the insights that come out of that. And a lot of our customers have tons of data, but their biggest problems, can they answer their business questions? Are they even asking the right questions? And are those questions really driving desired outcomes? And well, I guess, there's a proprietary font that gets messed up. Anyway, but one of the really cool things about this space is getting data storytelling and letting the information speak for itself, moving away from traditional business intelligence where you have to come up with a hypothesis and write a report that shows how much product we sold by region. I mean, the hindsight stuff's really not driving value anymore. It's about uncovering the hidden correlations within your information. So the data discovery and storytelling, and giving the business the frameworks to find those hidden insights and to feed their thirst. So I'll blast through these. Basically a lot of companies are struggling. They don't have an understanding of really how to drive business strategy with analytics. Most of their time is spent preparing data, and they don't really have the expertise in-house to be able to align their information assets and analytics with their desired outcomes as a company. It means what are our products, who are our customers, how do we go to market? Well, are those the right strategies? Are we driving against those effectively? And it's pretty great to see this space exploding exponentially, and seeing our customers and businesses across Atlanta really starting to mature in that space. So we talk about managing data as an asset. We got capital and people assets. Managed by finance. Capital assets are managed by finance. Human assets are managed by HR. They've got their policies. They've got tools or financials. Well, data as an asset is really no different. It's just as important. So really building the competency and capabilities to drive strategic change and transformation through analytics and data management. So, it's about maturing. Can't boil the ocean and become a fully data-driven company overnight. So a lot of companies, start with the spread marks and really uninformed. Might build a data warehouse, and then you've got integrated data. Then starting to get into building trust within your organization around data. Might build a single version of the truth. We hate to use the word master data management, but we have to give it context. So finally building, again, you're getting to that point where it's trusted information and getting to the understanding of not just, again, proving a hypothesis of a report, but why are our sales increasing or decreasing? What's behind all that? But the more exciting piece of this is, starting to leverage the power of these platforms, especially not Hadoop. It's really these platforms that are coming out around finding the hidden correlations and value of information, letting it speak for itself, like the Alteryx, the rapid miners, data robots. So really enriching, growing through that advanced visualization. Now getting to predictive, what's going to happen, but ultimately by by giving the business community the ability to uncover the insights that they might not think about, again, letting the data tell the story, finding, leveraging really great algorithms and statistical models to uncover insights, we can start getting prescriptive and saying, we will maximize, instead of why did our sales for a particular product go up, it's because the price changed. It is, at what price are we going to maximize our margin or our profit? So really getting to that point, and then embedding analytics into the touch points with their customers. For example, we have one customer who's got a buy online, pick up in store capability, and a simple embedded predictive model at the little point of sale where they come in and pick up what you ordered online, to give that the clerk, the sales rep, suggestions on what products to upsell and cross-sell to that customer based on their segment, their model, and purchase history. So, really driving change at the forefront of the business, and becoming truly data-driven. So, that's our mission as a company, is to help our customers move through this this journey. So we're just senior data consultants about delivering strategic impact by leveraging data as an asset to drive, again, really value creation, profitability, and I'll just blast through the rest of this. I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. But again, it's I'll go back here. It's moving away from traditional business intelligence reporting and really defining value creation and sustainable profitability by leveraging the power of prescriptive, predictive analytics, price elasticity to demand, product placement, by location, all those great things. So data is our entire focus. A lot of consulting firms have 30 different practice areas, and their depth might depend on which, whether they might be really strong in PMO or strategic change. We only do data, but we're very deep in that space. We partner with Atlanta's largest corporations, but honestly, we're seeing so much more value in the SMB market right now, and the ability to rapidly adapt to these new capabilities. And we had one customer, we were able to help them achieve their target of becoming $1 billion revenue. And the COO and the CFO in their town hall, 3 of the 5 data points on how they got to $1 billion were all about data, information, analytics. I'll go back to this. The real important thing, though, is you talk about data scientists. There's a Venn diagram. There's 3 areas, right? There's business acumen. There's the statistics, mathematical understanding, and then data, being able to understand and leverage data. That business acumen is if you're finding all 3 of those in one individual is amazing. But without having the ability to understand how to apply what you're modeling to an actual business outcome, doesn't really have a lot of value. So it's really important to bring that business lens to a technical conversation, or vice versa. Just blast through. From the top level, enterprise information management strategy. So really, again, building out the competencies. Like I said, you've got HR managing human assets. You need both an IT and business capability to leverage data as an asset. Basically all things data. But analytics, advanced analytics is, again, that key there, are you sitting on a gold mine? That's where companies are really, understanding the huge potential within leveraging platforms to help them uncover those insights. That's it. I'll leave it to the more important discussion about actually seeing a company put this stuff into practice. But again, we're thought leaders in Atlanta. Again, the font. That's not Spanish. But really, as a consulting firm, focus on the business outcomes, not just a particular analytic solution or big data. It's asking the questions, all right, how are you going to become more competitive in the marketplace and drive sustainable profitability? And then we've got our IP frameworks, reference architectures, but our focus is just Atlanta, which is important to our consultants, giving them the ability to deliver highly strategic initiatives, but work where they live. I was with Pricewaterhouse for 8 years, and our customers really appreciate that as well, knowing that their consultants are in the same community, not just from a networking and understanding, but giving back to the community. If you guys picked up one of these, we use a local company here in Atlanta, a bunch of SCAD graduates, really brilliant folks called Creative Juice. So, leveraging local businesses to help us drive our change, we carry the same message to our potential customers. So that's pretty much it. From strategic to tactical, I won't get any more detail. But the reason we're here is to really help evangelize data sciences, analytics, and to find and hire the best, brightest minds in the Atlanta market, or anyone that wants to relocate to Atlanta, to join the 3Sage team to help our customers really drive strategic change and understanding how to leverage and harness the power of their information and raise their corporate IQ. So that's it. Hopefully you were able to pick up a folder, and there's more information there, but we're excited to be a sponsor of this group and several others here in Atlanta, and really looking forward to GP's discussion of how they're driving, like I said, real business value and strategic change through analytics. All right, thank you very much for having us, and leave it at that.
Thanks, Rick. So good evening. All right, let's try again. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, we're better. So energy is contagious. We get it from one another. And I'll try and keep this light and insightful. And if you have questions along the way, I'll try and answer them. I brought the two smart people with me, which I'll introduce next. So if you're curious about a job, Bruce, raise your hand. He's our representative for Georgia State from a recruiting perspective. And then if you're interested about how the weird math works and how we make this happen, Tyler, raise your hand. So those are the two people that have also brought along with us. I wasn't able to bring Liz Fritz. She's one of our IT co-ops. So she's a master's student with Georgia State right now and is doing analytics for us. So she's getting Infosystems Masters, but is doing analytics for us. So again, thank you, Georgia State. So what we're going to try and accomplish tonight, you've heard introductions. We're going to talk a little bit about GP and Koch Industries. We'll do that briefly, but we're a private company. Some of you may not be as familiar about what we do, who our parent company is, so we'll address that quickly. And then we'll get into the meat. So, the concept of say no to big data, anyone that, I think it was in 5th grade, we all went through DARE, right? And they say, just say no to drugs. Well, big data feels a little bit like that right now. Everyone has a solution, a tool, and wants to impress you with the fact that they can store data. But the reality is there's almost zero value in storing data. The value is in analyzing it, and the value is in getting a business outcome. So the point I want to glean across to this group is, in my 14 years, I have never, ever, ever started or finished an analytics project. Not one. I've never done one. They're always a business problem, a business challenge. Analytics is simply the enabler, the tool, the technology, the technique we use to solve that business problem. So that's what we want to get across is we'll go through what bad looks like, what good looks like, and then Tyler's got a really cool presentation on text mining and how we're using that to drive improved safety outcomes. So there's some fancy stuff in there, and that's all great, but ultimately we want a safer environment for our employees. So again, we're trying to get to the outcome and not, hey, is the chart fancy? Sure. Is there some neat technology? Absolutely. But the outcome really matters. And we'll talk a little bit about the technology we leverage. It's not by all means a buy from list, but it's one to think about. So here are the people we brought along. Liz unfortunately could not make it, but Tyler's here, Bruce is here, and the two hats I wear at GP is I support our consumer products business, and then I also support our other businesses with advanced analytics needs and some needs that also happen at Koch Industries. So a little bit about us. If you're not familiar, that big blue building that has GP on the top of it, that's ours. We now officially own it outright. A couple hundred facilities worldwide. We're a global leader in forest and consumer products. So does anyone know what most of our products start with?
Paper.
Well, paper is an offshoot, but where do we begin? Wood. We start in the forest. That's where our products come from. So all of our businesses, that is the secret thread in most of our products, is we harvest trees and we use them to make finished goods. And if you're going to ask the next actual questions probably, well, why do you cut down all the trees? And we'll say, well, there's actually more trees today than there were 70 years ago. And we also practice and adhere to sustainable forestry initiatives, meaning we won't buy timber from you if you can't replant it in a proper manner so that it grows back, and then we can cut it down again, and it grows back, and the cycle repeats. So just kind of an important thing to bring up there. And then fluff pulp, so any of you that have children, that really absorbent material that keeps it in the diaper and not on your couch, that is fluff pulp. So we're one of the largest producers of that product. And then also your brown boxes. So think of that box that shows up from Amazon. That is a product that we can make, and we make across the country. This helps show a little bit of the graph. The latest data we found is 65% of American households have our products inside them. So whether that's our cut stock paper, fluff pulp, the craft paper in your dog food, the Brawny paper towels, the Sparkle towels, the Angel Soft bath tissue, those are our products. And then even the, hopefully this is gypsum wallboard, that'd be another one of our products as well. So this is how we organize our businesses. One of the things we point out, we are a sleepy company. People may not know, but we're roughly in the Fortune 130 if we were public. So that kind of roughs you in at about 20 billion. The reason why we're not on the Atlanta Book of List is we sort of decline all those tell us more about your company interviews or requests, because we believe there's a strategic advantage to being private. But those are how our businesses are organized. And since it is an election year, our parent company is Koch Industries, not C-O-K-E Coca-Cola, but Koch Industries. So if you're not familiar with Koch Industries, they purchased Georgia Pacific 2005 for $22 billion, liked us, held on to us, so we've been a Koch company going on 10 plus years. Koch is our parent company, give or take depending on commodity prices, $100 billion company. Normally first or second largest private company in the US. And GP is sort of a wholly run subsidiary. So the way we sort of think of it is, who's familiar with Mr. Buffett in Omaha? He's sort of the public version. We're a conglomerate, we're in a lot of different businesses, but the concept is we're decentralized, we believe in a decentralized management structure and operations and setup. And then here's my last thing, and then we'll get into sort of the analytics component of that. So a lot of the products, how many people drove here? Okay, we're still paying attention, good. If you flew here, if you're checking your iPhone, if you fed your dog some dog food, a lot of those products, we make some of those. So you may not have heard of some of these companies, but the companies like the Molex, the companies like Matador Cattle Ranch, we actually own ranches, where we do farming, your jet fuels, your refined petroleums, your ethanols, those sorts of things. All Koch products, many of them are business to business. That's why you probably don't see very many Koch branded products. Many of our customers are other businesses. And Georgia Pacific is a little bit unique in that we have branded products that we sell to consumers. Okay, so now we're going to get into the good stuff. This is where we're going to transition from talking about what is the big data challenge, and then how do we start to talk about value. So we're all familiar, data is growing at an astronomical pace. I've heard 47%, I've heard 38%. Let's just call it 40. So that means every 2 years, we've recreated every bit of data we had the year before. 40% growth. What we're also seeing is not only is data growing everywhere, but at companies we have this unlocked treasure of data. You know, Rick was sort of alluding to this, right? We're gathering this data, yet not all of us are monetizing it the way we can. And so what I thought was interesting, and I double-checked the math, this came from Forbes, but every second there are 40,000 searches performed, which when you multiply seconds to minutes, minutes to hours, hours to days, there's 1.2 trillion searches that Google is gathering every year on us. That's just Google. Bing, I don't know their market share, but I'm pretty sure it's a good bit less. So this growth challenge is our ultimate headache here, right? And the neat thing about it is I think the math I saw was a megabyte was costing you about $9,200 to store in 1956. Today it costs you 0.007 of a penny on Amazon Glacier. So the fact that you can store data is not impressive. I know some people they love the fact they have a 50 petabyte database or a zettabyte or whatever the numbers are, but that's really not impressive. All that means is you've taken a bunch of stuff and it's really cheap and stored it. And unfortunately that doesn't generate net income. So what we'll talk about next is, let's get to the value part of it. This is the scary slide. So if you're going to take any pictures tonight, I'd ask the ones that say Gartner, please don't take pictures of those. And the reason why is we don't have unlimited distribution rights for Gartner's ideas, but we do pay for them and can leverage them. So that's all I'd ask on the slides. But this is the slide that makes me nervous. We're all in here because we have a passion or an excitement for data. And when Gartner goes out and polls our CFOs and polls our CEOs and talks to the CIO, 85% of the time, we don't have a clear business outcome that we've connected to that work we've done. I mean, think about that for a second. If we do 100 projects, if this data is right, it's good, challenge it, only 15% of the time are we going to have a quantifiable business outcome. That's scary. So that's where we as professionals, we have to get past the hype. You know, the hype is here. Everyone's got a platform, a software, a technology, a tool, a widget, a gadget, or whatever it is. But of all those things we have at our disposal, 15% of the time, we're given the business an outcome. Not a chart, not a graph, an outcome. And the second one, this one's maybe not as alarming, because not every single piece of analytical work we do is financial, right? Not every single one, but 50% of the time, we have a narrative where we're linking it to a financial objective. Only 50% of the time. Now at our company, we take compliance very serious, so we'll do analytics for forever to make sure we don't violate a law or regulation. Some of those are not going to have a clear financial outcome. But do we know what it costs if we have an environmental mishap? It starts with a lot and ends with more. So some of those things you're not always going to have a, hey, that cost me $1 million, or hey, that cost me $2 million. The point here is we as professionals owe it to ourselves to not fall into the same trap that IT professionals have fallen into. You take IT in 1980, very interesting and exciting space. And what is the IT budget growing at most companies right now? Anyone have a guess? He's pointing down. Some's not growing. I say, I want you to do more for less. 0, 2%, 3%, 5%. Well, why is that? The reason why is we've not connected the fact that in order for you to buy that thing off of Amazon, you can't do it without technology. IT has such a strong value statement or play that they could make, but we've lost that message. We've become technologists. And I just caution you as analytics professionals, if there's one thing you take away from this, when you start a project, when you finish it, can you connect it to some sort of outcome and either a financial result or making something better? If you can do that, you will be wildly successful in your career in this area. So what is value? Here's the definition. So just some people I've heard say it's a function of quality and cost. There has to be a market value to it. It has to improve something. There's a lot of different sources for it. So I thought I'd bring my four-year-old into this discussion here. So you've got two things in front of you. We'll use this as a poll. You've got a donut on the left, and you've got 8 $1 bills on the right. For people in this room, who values the donut more? All right, see, I got some honest people. So people like to have a donut. Everyone else wants the money, is that right? So who wants the money? All right, everyone wants the money. All right, let's change the game a little bit. You can have a donut, or you can have 10 rubles. Who wants the rubles? So you guys understand value, right? I tricked you a little bit. Rubles aren't worth anything. That donut at Dunkin' Donuts cost you 99 cents. A ruble, I think it's trading 68 or 70 to 1. It's worthless. Now, there's one person in my household that it doesn't matter if that's 10,000. My 4-year-old wants the donut. So, right, the value is in the eye of the beholder. People perceive value differently. The CFO has a different value framework. Your general counsel has a different value framework. So the point I'm making is, even though we want to connect to financial dollars, those financial dollars aren't always the same. It really depends on the audience. And so what we do with my son, we don't let him eat donuts often, but if he behaves during the week, every once in a while he gets a donut on Friday. So it made me think of, he values the donut more than the cash, regardless of the amount. So what we'll run through next is I'll talk through some bad examples. So these are not from GP. I've gotten most of this data sourced from other areas. But, bad examples, analyzing social media data is cool, no doubt. It's really interesting, right? Benchmarking, it's cool. Combining Instagram with Facebook is cool. And then combining that with your customer assets are all cool. But having 15,411 likes has no value to me. It has no tangible value. All it means is, hey, okay, I got some people to my page, and they hit like. Did they buy something from my company? Did they leave a comment? Now you're starting to get more interesting things. If I scan calls at my call center, and 4,500 times someone said disappointed, it's interesting. Might be able to do something with it, but unless I know, did they leave me 3 months later? Was I able to make them happy and sell them another product while they were on the phone? We've not connected it to an outcome. And this maintenance one's interesting as well. Is shifting from unplanned to predictive great for a manufacturer? Absolutely. Because we know unplanned outages are expensive to us. But if you don't know what an unplanned outage costs, how are you more valuable? If you can't tell the difference between a normal outage and an unplanned outage, if you can't say, I predicted that before it failed, you've not done anything special yet. Develop new customer insight. We hear that all the time. I have a new insight. I have a new way to look at my customer. We're trying one-on-one marketing like everyone else. But if I try it and they don't buy it, what value did I get? Right? It's about that outcome. So these are just examples you see thrown around. No doubt these are evolutions getting us towards that value, but in themselves, they're not valuable. So what I'll do in the next one is I've sourced these from other places. And I think these are examples where, again, we had a business problem we solved with analytics. So this is a large retailer. Gathered 70 million refrigeration data points and said, when there's certain temperature things going on, certain people and the customers, can I turn the lights off when they're not walking by? And I can measure how much energy I'm using in these refrigeration units pre and post, save the company $30 million annually in energy. Is 70 million rows of data that much? Probably to most of us, it doesn't scare us, right? There's probably people in this room who has billions of rows of data somewhere in their organization, right? 70 million, this is easy. But now you're telling me you can save me 30 million because you've done this with analytics? If I'm a CFO, let me NPV that over 10 years. You've just given me a $300 million opportunity, discount it, one way or another. But awesome, right? These are the outcomes we want. The second one is actually a company here in town, but this gets into optimizing configurations. So customers will say, 10 customers want that model and 1,000 want this one. Can you really just tell your 10 to buy this one over here? Can you use a little better sales technique? Can you convince them of the benefits? 210 million in new revenue. Real case right here in town, hardware, software maker. Now this one's kind of interesting. The last one doesn't really get to a dollar figure, But do you think it's better to install a wind turbine in one less month? Probably, right? Get it quicker to market. You know, the neat thing here is, yeah, we talk about analyzing 20 petabytes of data and 100 parameters, but I've accelerated now installation time a month. There's a tangible value to that. So I think these are good examples. And here we go. We're in a college environment. So you guys tell me your opinion, scan the opportunity, look at the results. So we've improved program foresight. We think we saved losses in hundreds of millions of dollars from program delays. Is that valuable? See, shaking your heads. Yeah, would it be great if we knew it was 160 million versus 90? Sure. But this is telling me I can save hundreds of millions of dollars. I have better program foresight. I have better program assessments. Well, if you're a defense contractor, this is huge because delays are dollars. You signed up for that contract. It's a fixed amount. You can't meet that program amount. Sorry, Uncle Sam may not pay you. So I think this one's good. This one here. Okay, so we're talking about orange juice, and we know that weather, freezing, and all these other variables impact the price. So if we have a dynamic formula, and we could do this for our $2 billion business, and we could replan in 5 to 10 minutes, is that valuable? It is, but it's a little soft on the outcome, right? So if I can replan in 5 to 10 minutes, that's great. Everyone who's been to Disney World, they are great at replanning, but they replan to drive incremental revenue. They replan to lower cost of people in the parks. They replan to play with the dynamic ticket pricing. So you want to, again, drive that value. And this one, it's not the worst case ever, but it's a little mediocre. So here's one. Scanning buns as they fly by. That's exciting, right? You don't have to count them manually. So I can photo analyze 1,000 buns per minute. I can eliminate 1,000 pounds of wasted product per year. I can save energy, can reduce manual labor costs. What do we think about this one, good or bad? Pretty good. If I were a stickler, I'd say, well, how much manual labor, right? I'd say, how much energy? You know, I might ask those questions. And then you can put a dollar figure on what you sell a bun for, and you can arrive at what is that waste going out the door. So again, we're darn close here, right? We've got something scanning a bun, it's going by fast, new technology, great automation. We're almost there. So I'd say this one's pretty good. And I think, let me check, there might be one. Yes, two. Let's just skip to the last one. So here, improve call center performance, right? This is a data scientist dream. Do all this fancy stuff, net 8.4% reduction in call time, shorter calls, top CCRs can handle more calls. What do we think about this one? Valuable? It depends. A little fuzzy on this one. It's kind of the one before, right? Are all these good things? Do they probably keep our customers happy? I think so, but we need to know, does that result in less call center employees? Does that result in better product sales? We just don't know exactly. So I kind of give this one a maybe as well. So that kind of got you through value, and I think we're kind of right on track. We should be able to keep going at a good speed. Any questions there? I'm going to jump kind of next into a thing that's a little unique to us, but questions about value? Suggestions? All right, we'll keep going. So for us at Georgia Pacific and even Koch Industries, I couldn't get the Koch Industries data, but for our data, I could not find one person in our 35,434 employees that has the title data scientist. I didn't get one. Tyler doesn't have it. So as far as I'm aware, we don't have a data scientist. And I don't know that that's right or wrong. But the point I'm trying to make here is, as you look at data studies, I think I've seen 150,000 short on what would be kind of data scientists, right? The number that scares me, and this has been published by McKinsey, is it says we have a gap of 1.5 million to 2 million managers that understand analytics and understand how to apply it. So it's not to diminish the value of a data scientist. How many people here are data scientists? They got some sort of data scientist title. It's a great job. It's going to be in demand. But we found the hard thing for us is to find that data scientist. They're really difficult to find. But what we can do is train our people in data science methods. So what we try and do is rather than seek out the unicorn, as Rick called it earlier this this evening, rather than seek that person out, because we're a company founded in sound economic principles, we try to follow data science methods. So for us, it's hypothesis driven. What question are we answering? And right now we're playing with some of the self-service platforms. We haven't made huge inroads, but I think they've got some promise, right? Not so much what's the hypothesis, feed it data, it spits a result back. We try to be purposeful with innovation. So at our company, everyone has an expectation for innovation. So rather than hope that a new product comes out, we have people who do nothing but new category development. And they're hypothesis based, right? We're testing products in stores. We're testing products with our customers. We're driving these innovations. We're trying to be purposeful. It's not just we sit back and we hope. And then one thing that's key or really important for us is kind of valid economic thinking and principles. So when we think about a decision we want to make, a conclusion we want to get towards, we want to use sound economic thinking in that. So I don't know there's anything revolutionary on this slide, but I think the point is, in more and more conferences I go to, if you're struggling to find that data scientist, you can get some great successes at least trying to approach it from a data and scientific method approach, right? Very sound, scientific, follow hypotheses, establish conclusions, start over, right? We've been able to get some good value of that. Now, some of the trading businesses we have in Wichita, they have quants with PhDs, and they're doing some very sophisticated and very interesting things. But at GP, we've honestly bought a good bit of that data science talent, and we're trying to get our people more comfortable with the method. And this is some of the technology we use. It's not an exhaustive list. Everyone's favorite. We definitely have some Excel all over our organization, Access, the SQLs, the Microsoft tools. We are a Hortonworks shop. RapidMiner, Intel, LlamaSoft. For those of you familiar with those, you can guess what we do with them. And then two tools that we're really passionate about, and Tyler will present on what he's done with them, is Alteryx and Tableau. Just sing very high praises of those. They're great tools. And then Python is another one that if we can't find that right fit. So what we'll do next is Tyler's going to come up and present on a solution we've developed. And at the end, I can kind of explain the value as you have questions. So Tyler, if you want to come on up, and I'll transition the microphone to you.
Thank you, Dustin. As Dustin mentioned, my name is Tyler Willing. I'm a senior data analyst at Georgia Pacific. I've been with GP for about 3 years. Before that, I was an accounting student at UGA, got my master's in auditing, got my CPA, don't use it at all. That's fine with me. So, what is someone doing in accounting and auditing, talking about analytics? And had you asked me 3 years ago, I wouldn't have predicted I'd be here myself. You can build a model to predict that. You probably wouldn't have picked me up. How it happened was I was at UGA. I took accounting because I was in a business school. It interested me the most. And obviously, I just followed the track that accounting led into the master's program for auditing. I found GP as a potential internship opportunity in the summer of 2012. So starting with GP during the internship, I kind of got a feel for the auditing department and the internal audit function. Kind of played around with some of the different functions our department serves to the business, including your financial audit stuff. But I showed an interest more in the technical aspects of the job, such as working primarily within Excel at that point. So a lot of that custom VBA creation at the time was the only thing I had at my disposal. So when I left to go back to school and had the offer to come back after I finished my master's, they said, hey, we're going to start an analytics department. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. How many people are in there? Well, it's just a director, and then, that's it. I'm like, okay, that sounds fun. So I tried it out for 3 months, and then that 3 months never stopped. So now it's been 3 years. Since I started 3 years ago, we've kind of developed our tool sets that we have at our disposal. So again, like I mentioned, we had Excel at the beginning. We've started to mature, and we've acquired tools such as Alteryx and Tableau, which I'll be talking about today, picking up Python along the way. We use R, but we use the R integration within Alteryx to do a lot of the needs that we need to get the results from that. And using that, we can get pretty much all the solutions we need for the business problems that we've presented so far. Otherwise, as Dustin mentioned in the other slide, we have some other tools at our disposal that we could use. So today, I'm going to be talking about a project we did around safety analytics. What's the value of this is what I'll be trying to drive home as I talk about this a little further. But essentially, probably in about, I think early 2014, there was a big initiative within GP to push safety. There were a number of high-risk incidents that occurred to where, our tolerance is 0, but we really need to drive home that, we need to prevent anything coming down the line further as best we can. We need to train our employees. We need to understand what has happened in the past so it doesn't happen again in the future. And so because of this big initiative, we were kind of wanting to get at the data that it had behind what happened during those incidents to see if we could do anything. Having never seen the data before, I wasn't sure exactly what was going to entail. So our objective was to improve or provide new insight into safety data that's stored in an application that was homegrown, and then using advanced analytics and data visualization, improve whatever insight we can. And our scope was just looking at initially our tissue, towel, and napkin facilities, so the things that'll make that Angel Soft, Quilted Northern, Sparkle, and Brawny. So that was our scope, and kind of getting into the data, taking a look at it. I'll kind of explain a little bit to what we're capturing within that data. So say for instance I'm walking around the facility, I trip and fall, and I say I tripped over a box on the ground. All right, I got hurt. I may have incurred a laceration by something that was on the ground. So at that point, because of the injury, we're going to get a lot of the staff of the safety department at that facility involved, the manager. People at corporate will probably hear wind of it, depending on the severity of the injury. So they'll go into this system that we've built to kind of house all this information, and they'll put in information around, okay, this incident occurred on this date. All right, great, we have a date. That's awesome. It's a data point. We have a short description about what happened. Okay, cool. There's an even longer description about what happened as you get into it. All right. Next, all right, and then they go into providing some additional categorical metadata added to it, such as when I tripped over that box and fell down, what was the probability of it, what was the severity of it, and what was the frequency risk of it. So those 3 factors are what our people are putting in as kind of a scale of 0 to 10 around what was the probability, risk, frequency, severity. And the problem is that stuff's very subjective to the person inputting the incident. So say, for instance, I tripped over a box and fell to the ground. Okay, that happened. But what if you elevated that up to 100 feet and I was on a catwalk? The severity, potential severity is really high there, but is someone going to recognize that when they input it in there? Maybe not. So moving on into kind of how we tackle these issues is getting into into the data itself. So the idea was, all right, let's try and take the subjective nature of how we take a look at this data when we approach it. There already are reports out there that kind of summarize the data based off of the categorical data that people add to it, so that's not going to provide anything new to the business. So we really wanted to focus on looking at the actual text descriptions. What we found was that sometimes when someone incurs an injury, there could be a whole essay written about what happened, especially if it was really severe. At the other times, in the opposite end of it, we're also tracking leading indicators. So say I was walking and there's a box on the ground, I notice the box, I step around the box, I don't get hurt. Well, it's the responsibility of that employee to input that incident into tracks and say, hey, this could have been a potential injury, could have potentially been a bad one, not sure. They'll rank it as they see best fit and move on with their day. So the descriptions can be short, long, anywhere in between, and we really want to hone in on trying to extract as much information from that as we can. So this is the step where we said, okay, Alteryx doesn't really have the capability to do some of the text mining analysis that we want to achieve, and so we'll look into Python. So there's a Python package called NLTK. It's your natural language text processing kit. There's a lot of different features of this product. We used a part of it being able to rip apart the essays that were written or sentences, strip them into sentences, provide grammar details to them if they're a noun, if they're a verb, adjective, etc. Providing that information about what words are being used to describe this event. We can then start using this package that is kind of a regex algorithm that will be able to pick out noun phrases, verb phrases, and me not having a strong inclination for the English language. I was never a strong language arts student in school, so I went into accounting and numbers. Having to take that approach again and like, oh yeah, what's a noun phrase again? What makes that up? From a data side was actually pretty interesting. So that's just a snippet of kind of the regex that sits behind the scenes. So providing this information to the way that events are being described, we can then provide additional information for Alteryx when we bring that into the scene. So within Alteryx, we can now say, hey, remove all those stop words, those jump words that don't mean anything. And then start looking at identifying words that are really driving a certain cause. So for fall, trip, and slip events, a key word in a description is probably going to be foot, or trip, ice, water, whatever have you. In an incident where there's a fire, fire will probably appear. Using the packages within Alteryx to try and determine, and from a statistical standpoint, what's important or not, we can kind of tweak how the results of that appear. And then, the goal of this is we're trying to improve insight. And one way we thought we could do that is saying, all right, when I tripped over that box earlier, how many other events were like that? Before, there was no insight into trying to, in knowing what other incidents it looked similar to that one. So by analyzing all this text information, gathering all the information about what kind of words were used to describe it, I can start matching incidents that occurred in the past. I can start matching it to events that occurred at other facilities with that one event. So that way, if someone at a different facility sees a rise in incidents that occur around an injury that they had 2 years ago, maybe they need to train their folks again and just make sure that doesn't happen at their facility. So that was the other goal, is trying to make that similar event analysis. In addition to that, there was a lot of issues with bad data around. We were missing information about the incident. So the cause was blank. When I tripped and fell over that box, there was no information about what kind of incident that was. So using some logistic regressions within Alteryx, we can kind of predict what the cause was based off the language they used in their description. So that way we can kind of fill in the blanks to where we didn't have good data, and now we can leverage the Alteryx results to improve the analysis. All right. The next piece of this was trying to take that subjective nature out of the safety data. So like I said earlier, they were taking in 3 different types of risk scores. If maybe we start the conversation with saying we don't trust them, we can start saying and trying to come up with our own risk scores from a low, medium, high standpoint based off the language they used rather than what the person thought the event was. So that way, if I was walking along a catwalk and I tripped over the box, I might pick up on the word catwalk rather than just relying on the person who just said he tripped over a box. It might say, hey, that could have been a potential medium or high level incident rather than the low one that you recorded it as. So trying to take that subjective scoring out of the equation. And now we kind of get into just one of the dashboards. And this one is not really providing any insight in terms of what the value is. This is more of just summarization, trying to replace an existing report that they were already using. They were really focused on critical hazard areas. Critical hazards were causes associated with what you see there on the left-hand side. You're struck against, stepped on, fall, slip, trips, etc. As you can see with this dashboard, starting at the top, we just have a simple word cloud. The colors indicating the severity of the event, level 1, 2, and 3. Think of as your low, medium, high events. And right now we're looking at all events that ended up with an injury. Unfortunately, / fortunately, the population of high-risk incidents is really low. So obviously from an analysis standpoint, we don't have a good sample size to draw any statistical conclusions with trying to do those predictions. but again, it's low, which is good. We don't want a lot of those high-risk situations. And then below that, we'll have a time series of showing the percentage of total for each year going down, whether or not the incidents are going down. Obviously, in 2014, there was that spike I mentioned earlier, so you can see that there for the high-risk incidents. But again, the population is low, so that spike is not really a large number of incidents that occurred. And then down here, we'll break down, kind of mask some of the data. Those are some of our facilities on the right-hand side, again, breaking down the level 1, 2, and 3. The other side of the equation, we have the causes that are tied to those. So this just provides an interactive way of drilling down into the information. So if I go to the next one, you could filter down on the level 2 category for one facility over there. Those will then filter on the left-hand side and also the word cloud in the time series to show you the progression over time and the associated incidents for each of their causes. You could drill down further into a specific cause area you're concerned with, so caught or in between. Those are a concern to me, so it'll update the word cloud up top. It'll start to populate the high-risk keywords to be larger than some of the other ones that occurred more frequently. And then we can then drill down into the detail if we wanted to. Put the page forward. Oops. Let's skip one. Or maybe it's missing. I'll just do it myself. We can also drill down on the details once you get to a level that you deem appropriate to want to know what were the incidents that fell into that bucket. And then here you'll get all of the information around what happened, if there was an injury, what happened, they smashed their finger, fracture, etc. So that's just an easy way for them to review these incidents that occurred. The next dashboard, one more slide here. You can also filter down the word cloud if you're interested in a word that was appearing. If I select on laceration, it'll filter laceration events. Yeah. Sorry.
So are you also running some analysis to figure out how to assign the levels to the words, or is that based on a background model you've got?
Both. So there's already an existing level 1, 2, and 3, and we're also calculating our own low, medium, high ourselves. We have this version of the dashboard exists off of the data that's already collected. So their category level 1, 2, and 3s is what they already put in the system. And we also have one that's focused on taking the subjective scoring out of it and saying, even though that you coded that as a level 2 event, it was only a bruise. Because you said it was a bruise, it's probably more likely a low event. And we have one that's kind of focused on organizing it from there. Yes?
Yeah, actually I figured that you were doing something like that, but then how do you associate multiple words within the description? Like you mentioned catwalk, which would be a higher, I guess, severity, but then
right.
You mentioned bruise. So how do you combine all these different words to come up with the appropriate severity, I guess?
Yeah, so that was a challenge, and obviously there's a lot of fine-tuning that's required from it, but first step is removing all the stuff that doesn't mean anything. So doing some basic analysis to say, all right, this one word appears across all these different causes. So, for instance, let's pick the word red or something. All right, it's a color. Red might appear in a fall event. It might appear in a struck by event, caught or in between. It's appearing all over the place. It's mentioned very frequently. I can go ahead and assume that it's not really important to what's driving an actual event. From there, you can kind of get into some z-score analysis of saying, hey, whenever you said bruise, it was almost likely always tied to the caught or in between one. All right. And then once you start doing that, you start understanding that, hey, these words are the more important ones. I'm going to give them more weight based off of how important they are. So we might use that z-score as a part of a weighting threshold. We might reduce the weight if it appears more frequently. And then as a part of that, once you kind of bring in all of the keywords that are appearing, so you bring in the word bruise, and then you also bring in the word catwalk. Those are two maybe medium or high level words that are really tied to those type of events that I can say, hey, this is leaning more towards the medium side rather than the low side, and kind of drawing those lines around what's low, medium, or high. So there's a fine balance, but trying to find a fine balance between all those different points together. Yeah.
What happened in 2014?
There was some incidents that occurred, affected a couple of facilities where there was more than one person hurt too. So there was a lot of investigation work that was done as a part of that. So there's more entries there. I'm not going to go into the details around what exactly happened, but all right. So the next one is, this is great and all. We're able to summarize all this information. We did all the analysis to try and improve some of the metadata that's associated with the incidents, but we need to try and really figure out, if an incident is similar to something else that happened. Personally, this was a challenge to actually visualize in the first place. This is just a proof of concept. The final result, the product might not even look exactly like this, but it achieved what I needed to kind of get the point across for a presentation. At the top is just a bar chart summarizing the incidents that were tied to other incidents. So you can see here that a lot of org 1, 2, and 3, they have the highest number of incidents, on the bar graph, but a lot of these are going to be leading indicators. So I mentioned earlier when I avoided that box, I put it in the system. Some facilities are better at kind of taking that moment and realizing I need to go put this into the system before they go on with the rest of their day than others. So some people their employees are not really incentivized to go put that in the system to say this happened. Some people are incentivized to put a number of entries that happen over the course of a day in there. So although they appear higher up on the scale there of the bar chart, not necessarily a bad thing in that instance, as well as the fact that even if they had more injuries, they also might have more employees. So that too.
So is that relative to the size of the organization? Is it like a percentage of total employees, or is it just total number of incidents?
That one's just raw total number of incidents that occurred. We have another one that does more benchmarking and scoring. That kind of
one could be a really large organization, so it's naturally.
Exactly. So safety, they have all these scores that are OSHA does as well, that kind of weight number of incidents over your total production hours. So that kind of takes some of that, because it is a larger facility, then you'll have more incidents out of the equation. That's a different dashboard that I won't get into. But with this one, the most important thing to note here is just this bottom graph, and I'll kind of explain what this is doing. So you have an incident. I tripped over that box and fell. What we're doing is we're going in the past and using Alteryx, a lot of their fuzzy matching, a lot of their matching on words, joining capabilities. We're able to say, hey, it looks like you had a good match score percentage to a certain one that happened over here at this facility. Could have been the same facility, but overall it looks very similar. So how do you visualize that? I'm not saying this is how you do it. I'm just saying this is how I did it. But you can see it's just a scatter plot here. The y-axis ranges from 0 to 10, and the y-axis represents the injury risk score. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, I had an incident where I tripped over the box. Maybe that's related to maybe 3 other incidents that look like it. All right, so now I have 4 incidents that look like each other. Now we're saying, all right, let's say 2 of those incidents resulted in an injury. So that means that 50% of the time, one of these events ended up in an injury. From there, we're saying one of the injury events, what was the risk score that was in the system? And from here, we can say, all right, what's the injury most likely injury risk score based off of that grouping? So if it falls along the 5 range, this could be kind of medium. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the percentage of time is going to be on the x-axis that it was an injury. So just to give you, if I click the next slide, you'll see, yes?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Your risk score, what means 10, what means 0?
What means 0 and what means 10? 0 is going to be your low. So 0 is low, 5 is medium, high is 10. And then what we're doing is we're averaging the injury risk scores together, so you can get some that fall in between the two. Say you had 2 injuries, but they're both a medium, you're going to fall along the 5. And as you can see, there's not really that many that fall up into here.
So why I don't see it, maybe I'm reading this incorrectly. Why I'm not seeing high injury score for the 100%?
So this is a 100% injury risk score. So these are the events over here occurred in an injury. All of them did. So there might just be 2 or 3 in here. If you clicked on those, you can see they're all falling below 5. you most likely won't have a 10 risk score and 100%. That means that there was 3 high-risk scenarios that all matched each other, and most of the time, you're not going to have an incident that looks exactly like that incident with that small population of high-risk injuries. Does that make sense? Maybe if I'll click in, it might make a little more sense.
So is this like based off of the actual data, or is this predictive?
So this is based off of the actual data. Yeah. So the only predictive and part of this is really just trying to match the events that happened. We're not forecasting out. Yeah.
What is that top,
The top one in the middle. That means that there was an incident here, 2 of them. The injury risk score was 10. And let's go to the next slide. I'll drill down on one. So if I selected on one of these, I filtered out on just leading indicators, and I'll talk about that in a second. It'll drill into showing you the different incidents that were tied to it. For this one, there was 2 incidents that were tied together. And if I scroll up, you'll see I filtered on leading indicators. The idea is I want to know when a leading indicator looks similar to an injury that occurred in the past. So that way I can see, all right, when did that injury occur? How many leading indicators do I get? Am I seeing any kind of signals within my organization that this is a potential issue that I need to look into? Do I need to do more training? And if I filtered on this one, this sat along that 50% line. The average injury risk score was 5. That's only because only one of them was an injury. So you can see this green one over here was a low severity injury. But if you start going in the description, I'm not going to read it out loud. You don't need to read the whole thing either. We're summarizing a lot of the keywords over here on the left-hand side. So we're saying, hey, belt, catch, core, finding, hand, these all appear very similar words, keywords in these events that occurred. And what you'll find is that they all involve the same machine. Both of these, if I hover over it again, this was a Cotter in-between event. One of them was leading indicator that occurred this year, and another injury occurred in 2012. Do I have an issue that I need to address? You can kind of read the details and decide for yourself. It's not with this example, but it could be the situation where I have a leading indicator now. It looks like some injuries that occurred over at different facilities. Maybe do I have the same kind of scenario that could lead to that injury at my own facility? Is another question you might ask. And we can do the same thing for if we select on a different one. This one had 3 different incidents that were tied to it. In this case, these were all involving the alarm, and you'll see alarm come through. What is the alarm? It was actually it's a gas alarm related to the hydrogen sulfide, I think. So it's a poisonous gas. It's a really dangerous gas. One of them was a low severity injury. 2 of them were leading indicators. Maybe we need to look into what was driving these events to make sure that doesn't happen again going forward. So, yeah.
You mentioned that the kind of the human element of the propensity to report seemed to vary between facilities.
Yeah.
Did you do anything to kind of normalize that? Or was there any reference data that you could maybe then predict like what the propensity to report is at, say, a facility?
No, we didn't really get into that. What we did notice, though, is that the propensity to report was declining over time. So in 2014, you'll see there's a big spike where everyone was reporting a lot. Now it's starting to fall back off. So really leave that into the hands of the safety teams to make sure that we incentivize the employees. And if this is something that we put in the hands of people at the facilities, then maybe they are more incentivized to encourage their employees to put in more leading indicators if they know what the data they're inputting is actually going to do. Otherwise, a lot of times, it's say, hey, go put in 10 incidents each month, and you get pizza day. Is that really incentive for them? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah.
Is the industry controlled across the organization?
What do you mean by the industry?
I mean, are they all within the same scope of things?
Yeah, they're all TTN facilities, so they all kind of share the same machines.
So the risk of injury would be pretty much equal.
Yeah, if they have the same machine in the same setup, usually it's the same risk of injury. If the events matched. When you get into some of the fall, trip, and slip stuff, obviously can happen anywhere, and it might not be tied to whether or not there's a puddle on the ground or not. But a lot of the machines that are dealing with machines are probably a similar risk of injury. But a lot of times injuries result because of human error. You can't predict human error. You never know when it's going to strike. When someone gets lazy, when someone makes a mistake, et cetera.
It's a good point, though. What we struggle with is we're trying to predict something.
Yeah.
And we can't really predict anything. The best we can do is say these are similar because you run into, in Port Hudson, Louisiana, it's hot in the summer, you sweat, you're more likely to have sweat in your eye, and if you run into something, you may have to report that. In Green Bay, Wisconsin, less sweat, less humidity, so there's all these unique variables that we couldn't predict, but the best we could say is if we can arm someone with, this happened at another facility, same exact equipment, someone got hurt here, someone didn't. Go fix that, go communicate, something like that. So we really struggled. We wanted to predict something, but we couldn't predict. The best we could do is compare and align. It's a good challenge.
For prediction, I'm struggling trying to figure out, are you capturing the cause or the end result? Like, what is it here? Because I'm thinking based on what you said earlier, the value, right? The end result.
Mm-hmm.
What are we getting to? This is taking a bunch of noun verbs. We're grabbing data from it, like similar words, but what if the end results of all those similar words are different? Death, broken arm, how is this giving me the value I need, or, you know what I mean? Because, I hear you, but based on what you're saying, it's kind of contradicting, if you get what I'm saying. Because the end result, I don't think I'm getting the end result. I'm sorry.
So we're not trying to predict the root cause of every single event. Like, if I could go in through here with the text analytics and be, all right, hey, I suddenly know that the root cause is that the way your setup is on terms of where your platform sits and your machine, that's what's causing these events. You broke your arm one time, you tripped another. I'm only seeing how people best describe these events, and a lot of times that's not great. The most we can do is, match them based off of how their similarity appears, enable other people to kind of review them and use their own judgment to see if whether or not there is a root cause tied to these events themselves. So someone who knows the business, someone who sits at that facility, someone who knows exactly how that machine runs might have a better understanding of kind of what's driving these events. And maybe it's wrong, maybe it's not, but at least it gives them the opportunity to kind of, an insight opportunity to kind of look into that. Yeah.
I wanted to follow up on the question here in terms of the value, which we're talking about here, right? So I agree. To me, just looking from here, it sounds like it's something very unstructured like text. You manage to glean and get useful information, explain a nice dashboard, but not really doing prediction of risk, just recording, incidents and correlation, hopefully to prevent it. My question is, has there been a single phone call from headquarters to the plant because of this information here, say, hey guys, you probably have an issue you're not dealing with a machine? Has there been a single phone call with management taking action based on this?
No, we haven't gotten that far yet. I'm not saying that it will ever happen, but right now this was can we do something with this? Maybe. We tested it out. We've had some meetings initially to kind of discuss with the safety managers at corporate to say, hey, are you interested in this? If you are, how can we roll this out to some people who you might find useful? Are there changes you want to make? And now we're getting to the phase of, all right, let's figure out how we can best get this in the hands of people who can make the decisions to make that phone call to take some action on that. But no, there has not been a phone call made yet because of this. Yes?
When I came out, I used to be Six Sigma. One thing I really liked about this was kind of a positive spin. Using the RPM, we call it RPM, but the frequency, the impact, how significant an event is, very subjective measurement. I like the idea here of using words to put some rigor so you're normalizing it across a larger population of people, because everybody's going to rate an incident differently, and this gives you a chance to move that from a very subjective, I thought it was a big deal, to, okay, objectively, these 5 factors were present here, but not here, so this is fine. Great. A question, when you were mining this stuff, did you get any insights off the length or verbosity of an answer? So like with a long answer, anything about a long answer versus a short answer? Because you're starting to, listening to this talk, you actually might be able to get some insights into how honest people are.
Right. And we haven't gotten that far with it yet. And it's a great point you bring up, but because the raw data is very subjective, it's also up to the people inputting it of how long they describe an event. So a lot of times with injuries, depending on the level of it, there might be a lot of oversight where people add to the descriptions. They clarify things within the descriptions. And a lot of times, the other information that there's a lot more of, the leading indicators, there could be a long essay for someone who's really passionate about really painting this railing yellow instead of its gray color right now, who might be saying, oh, I almost fell over it or something, versus the employee who wants that pizza day, who's going to put in almost fell, and then that's it. It's a struggle, but we obviously, when you provide more information around the keywords, we're able to pick up on more, and it does help our analysis. But yeah, we haven't picked up on what.
It'd be very interesting from a legal perspective if you could detect signs of what they would call contributory negligence. So I got in trouble, but
Right.
I got in trouble because it was goofing off versus understanding you're doing my job and everything.
Right. And if an incident does occur, maybe being able to go into the tool and saying, all right, this happened. Was there anything that looked like this that I could have seen coming out like beforehand? Obviously, those are lagging indicators that aren't really helpful. Finding that leading stuff where you're able to kind of make an action before something happens is more helpful, but it does give you the opportunity to maybe do a little bit of that.
You probably have the data, right, to start getting predictive, like how long into their shift did the incident happen?
Yeah.
Their seniority at the position, training, lag in training, things like that.
So
that kind of data to add context probably.
Yeah, so there's some dashboards that I'm not getting into within this presentation, but we did stuff around with job title at the time, how long they had been with GP. Right. We lack a lot of the more sensitive information around their date of birth, information around how much work experience they have. But we're able to do a little bit around based off of your based off the job role, what's the likelihood of injury based off of the number of people in that role. Yeah.
How is the data reported? How is the report given? Is it like a desktop application that's in the back office somewhere?
It's browser based and it gets thrown into a SQL server.
No, but is it like in the context of the plant? So say or site. So if I'm out in the back 40 and I stub my toe on a log, I'm not going to run back to the front office to write a report.
Yeah.
But yet if I burn my tongue in coffee in a coffee machine and I'm sitting right there, I might put a report in. So one thing you talk about is not being maybe per se predictive, but maybe your analysis leads to maybe we need to make a change to make the ability to report this stuff easier.
Right.
More immediate, less burdensome, whatever.
At the very least, from this discussion that we've had with our safety leaders is maybe we need to change how the system is structured. You're not gathering key information about an incident that you really could be doing. We need to go and clean up historical events to make sure that they're binned appropriately in terms of what their cause was. But yeah, a lot of stuff like that is having the further discussions with safety teams, understand how we can best serve the business going forward.
Can you tie this back to the economic data like lost work days, workers' comp cases, claims?
No, we have not gotten to the workers' comp piece of it yet. The next step we were thinking about doing is kind of getting some more of the hourly information, understanding. The other issue comes into the fact that we only have personnel information around who actually was injured if it was a level 2 event or higher. So a lot of those simple first aid applications, we lack the knowledge of how long that person's been with a GP and things like that. So stuff that would be great for doing more predictive stuff, we lack some of the data on the back end to be able to make those decisions. And unless we change, as I mentioned earlier, if we change how things are being reported, maybe we do gather personnel information around even lower level incidents, maybe even leading indicators.
Yeah. And I mean, for this group, I know I was championing value. Behind this, we know what an incident costs us, level 1, level 2, level 3, if we have to litigate it, and we know what a fatality costs us, and we know we had our best last 18 months and didn't have any of those really bad things happen. We're not going to take credit for 100% or 10%, but we're somewhere in the middle. So there's some value to this, but we're not going to talk about what a fatality cost us at GP. But it's been interesting, right? Because it's a new, we said, we think we can do this, and our safety leader said, okay, whatever. We come back a few months later, he's like, this is great. How do we do it? How do we deploy it? But in a complicated organization, we're dealing with unions, we're dealing with OSHA, we're dealing with different shift cycles, different facilities, different cultures. So we haven't picked that, is it union, non-union? Is it a southern mill versus a northern mill? Is it one that's protected by this union versus that union? There's so much variability, and those Really bad injuries, we don't have 100 to pick from. You know, we're talking about a very, very small subset that can look just like one that was a leading indicator. So we're saying this exact pattern of data happened. This one, someone nearly died. This one cut their finger. Well, why is that? Well, this one fell in a digester. This one didn't. So that's really been our struggle, and would welcome, you know, people that really are into this. How do you account for that when I can't train a model when it gives me this much variability? So we're trying, how do we tighten that training and, you know, interpolation for the future?
So would one way, and I'm sorry to be asking so much questions.
Yeah, we're curious.
One way be, we as a startup, this is one of the things I'm thinking about, right? Is we have all this data, it has all this stuff in it. Like how do we sit through the nonsense and get to something similar to what you've got? But wouldn't it be more effective if kind of train the user, present them like a short description, full description, and result. And the end result is what you can report on. Because again, it's like you mentioned earlier, it's good to know. Yeah, we know. But there's no value. You know what I mean? So if we had meta tags in the final result, then it kind of breaks it down. It shrinks that footprint in a smaller group, like say for instance, fall and trip would be a group 3. A broke my arm will be a group 2. You know what I mean? But you fell, but the end result is you broke your arm. So now there's action. You could be out of work. Who's going to take your position? You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, the good thing to your point, for those not familiar with safety data, if it gets reported to OSHA, we have good data. We have to. If it's, I needed a Band-Aid, I mean, I have to tell OSHA, but that's a low-level event. The data may not be as high quality. So it's a good challenge in that those ones that go to OSHA, we have some good information on what was the outcome.
Do you have other types of data, like video or images or other things that you could use?
Connected to this? I don't think we do.
You're much more objective in some sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no, I don't believe so.
Not filling your names. You can see what happened.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are these leading indicators a predefined set of indicators, or is like system is learning about new indicators?
So I was like, how do we handle all these leading indicators coming in?
Because I'm trying to say, okay, you have a use case in your case.
Yeah.
If we have a use case in a different setup where alarm does not make sense, we may have a XYZ. How do we make a leading indicator out of that?
So, you know, with leading indicators, right now we're not doing any further training on the models or anything going on behind the scenes. We're kind of running it at the time with the whole population of the data. If they don't have an alarm, it would have picked up on another keyword that matches. So the top 3 words there are alarm, digester, and expose match, but these would still be linked to the system if they didn't have alarm. Maybe they're still related to the digester. There was some exposure to a harmful chemical. So we're still relying on some of that information to come through there.
These are predefined list with you. That this is what we'll have. You won't have another indicator getting added in your case.
And keyword.
Yeah.
As a keyword, I mean, you might have future ones that line up, but at the same time, too, you have a new leading indicator, right? But that incident might match to, it'll have a different bubble on that chart related to incidents that tie to that one, too. So in this case, I was looking at one incident that was leading indicator that matched another leading indicator and an injury. Well, we were doing the same process for each one of those that's coming through there. Yes?
Trying to piggyback on what he said, just like if you're reporting the data and you see the same thing happening at a mill or plant year after year, like you said with the sweat and everything. I was thinking you would just say, hey, we see the same thing at this particular plant year after year. Do we need, are there some changes? So the way I was looking at it, if we're going to present the same information year after year and you don't make any changes, then what's the purpose of the data?
So, I mean, this comes down to getting this in the hands of people who actually can make decisions. So at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, we're not sitting at our desks here saving lives or by any means. We're not making phone calls from our desk based on what we have. We need to get this in the hands of people who do see those similarities, get in the hands of the people who can take action at the facility, pick up the phone call, talk to the right people, and make that change so that way they can see it across. And the other thing we've been talking with some of the safety leaders is making it useful. I don't think any person at a facility is going to pick this up and be like, oh, bubble, click on it, drill down, let me read all these details. The next phase of this project will be around creating something that maybe someone can look at weekly, on a weekly basis, to see everything that happened this past week that happened at my facility, show them the ones that match the events that occurred in the past there and other locations. Maybe that way you're much closer to the front line of what's occurring at a facility and not waiting for things to happen before you see a year-over-year comparison.
So that gets my question, like, who's going to be the end user of this? Is it going to be people that are on the front lines using Tableau, or are you going to, who's using this? Is it you guys, or?
There'll be multiple parties, so there's a lot of interest at the corporate level of just being able to summarize the incidents that are occurring underneath their responsibilities. So just having visibility across whatever facilities someone manages would be good. Then you have the other people who are the safety leaders at facilities. They're going to want to be ones who are hands-on on this in terms of being able to track everything that comes through the system, because it's not a very user-friendly interface for the web for the incident tracking. So being able to maybe give them something that they can have pull up every morning, have a subscription on Tableau server to be able to email them with, here's the updated weekly stats on what's happening at your facility as an incident perspective. We haven't really decided who the final end users will be, but that's kind of something we've had discussions around.
The trends here, can drive change by organization, right? Mm-hmm. If a particular type of incident is trending up in a particular organization, they can make a change, to their...
Yeah. Right, like you were mentioning before that in Louisiana you might see a certain incident occur more just because of the weather. That's what I think on immediately is that you can actually, provide the analytics to have preparation to prevent those types of incidents due to the fact that it's more common. That's what I think about is.
Or to prepare for it happens around this time of year, you can actually make some changes at the front.
Yeah, and for us, the green and the yellow have been good for us. They're doing this. The one that scared us was the red. So, what Tyler did, I think, is really neat, is he recalculated what was your potential outcome risk model versus what you said it was. And so we looked at that and said, red's going up, but yellow and green are trending downward. Our data shows that. So what are all these reds? And if you're engaging in more high-risk activities, the potential for a bad outcome is what happened. Sometimes we may have just gotten lucky. But that's kind of been the good thing we've at least seen, is that high-risk behavior has gone down, but in a manufacturing environment, many of us have been out there, the number of employees is down. Automation has driven that. So we're dealing with new work processes, new ways we work. Laser-guided vehicles that don't have humans with them are actually more safer than humans in them. So there's a lot of changes going on where the trend is down, but we've just had some surprises where we said, all right, this is not acceptable.
All right, less skilled workers.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we're kind of in overtime right now, I think. Sorry for the delays getting started and everything. Let's go around to our speakers. You guys.